There's a hidden community in the English countryside who seem to have found the answer to a harmonious life.
I come from a village where there's no rich and no poor, and everybody shares everything.
There's no crime, debt, or homelessness. None of the children have mobile phones, use social media, or watch television.
I don't have a mortgage to pay, I don't have a pension. I don't have to worry about any of that.
I've never been so free in my life living here.
They are the Bruderhof, a radical Christian movement whose members have travelled from across the world to live in their own village, Darvel in Sussex.
It's a pretty crazy way we live. I mean, it's definitely not normal, and we all know that.
My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do.
Now, this private community has decided to let the cameras in to experience their way of life. And as one of the residents contemplates her future,
I have to kind of decide, where am I going to go with my life? Do I want to become a member of the Bruderhof? Do I want to do something else?
we'll find out what price members here have to pay to live in their modern-day utopia.
Why don't you put that bag on the wagon?
Bernard Hibbs first came to Darvel almost 30 years ago. He met his wife, Rachel, here, and they have 3 children.
The purpose of the Bruderhof is to follow Jesus as closely as possible. And it's based on Jesus' teachings in the Sermon on the Mount. If you read the Gospels, Jesus sets out how followers of his will live and what their lives will look like. And we believe that the right thing to do is to put those values into place here and now, and not just wait for some future glorious kingdom to come, but rather try and live like we think that kingdom would be like. There's no reason to wait. You know, we may as well at least start. And things like caring for each other, doing away with status, sharing your possessions, those are really easy starts to make, because we doubt there's going to be money in heaven. So why not just do away with it here?
There better not be money in heaven. It's such a huge disappointment.
The Bruderhof has almost 3,000 members in 23 settlements worldwide. Members move between them, and it can be a transient life.
People move around within our community as families grow or shrink or more people arrive. In the time I've been living in Darvel, I've probably lived in about 30 different houses.
Like Bernard's, each of the 55 families live communally, and nobody owns anything.
This is our living room, where we spend a lot of time together. And each family here has their own living room because it's vitally important to have family time together. So this is our kitchen. We share this with 3 families. My parents live down the hall, and then there's a young couple next to us with a 3-month-old baby, and so we all use this kitchen together. We have supplies that we need for cooking that we go and get from our stores department, and we share a refrigerator. People have labels on their shelves if they want. These aren't my things, I don't buy them. I own absolutely nothing. I don't even own my clothes. We have a department that buys clothing, so if I want another jacket, like this jacket, I simply said, could I have a black jacket to wear when the weather's cold? We get our shoes in the same way. You simply write a note to the clothing department, and I'll get given a pair of shoes a few hours later. So it's like sort of same-day shopping.
A century-old movement, the Bruderhof members follow a strict dress code, with some of the ladies' and children's wear being made on site by the sisters.
That's for nightwear, children's little dresses and nighties, And then these are kind of for people that feel young. We don't want a slinky kind that will show your figure. It says in the Bible, we should not try and attract attention to ourselves, especially for the opposite sex, and be modest.
The community buys everything it needs through a multi-million-pound business they own, making and selling children's toys and furniture.
Most people expect, when they hear about us, to see sort of lines of monks chiseling away on bits of wood, but it's not true. It's a big business.
The factory provides work for the majority of the community, but not one person earns a wage.
I've never had a paycheck in my life, but I don't like to brag, but I've perhaps worked harder than most people.
I don't need any money. Everything is provided within the community, so money isn't really necessary.
Beyond the factory, the residents also work on the farm, in the school, and operate the kitchen and laundry, which is run on an industrial scale.
We're 300 people and only 4 washing machines. So our laundry machines basically run all day. I sometimes even dream about working in the laundry at night, washing and folding people's clothing.
While the rest of the UK struggle to get a family of 4 around the dinner table, here over 300 people regularly come together to eat, sing and worship twice a day, 6 days a week.
You do a lot of singing, don't you, Bernard?
Well, I personally don't do a lot of singing because I have probably the worst voice on the whole Bruderhof. But yes, the Bruderhof is a pretty musical place. Singing lightens the heart and makes you feel better.
Hannah and her family have lived in the Bruderhof for 3 generations. She came to the UK aged 9, and now she's approaching adulthood. She's questioning her faith and future.
I'm not a member yet, and I could only become a member when I turn 21, so I'm too young anyhow. But now that I'm 18, I'm thinking about it, because joining the community would be a big deal, like a lifelong commitment. One reason that I wouldn't just join the Bruderhof is because it has to be something that's more than just traditions. It can't just be a thing that I grew up doing, so I'm happy with it, and it's comfortable, and this is how we did this. We've always done this, so this is what we're going to do, because that makes no sense to me. There's nothing real about that. It's just, it's dead. It's in the past. There's no point in doing something halfway, just because that's what Grandpa did.
It's true.
I'd have to be convinced that Jesus is going to lead us on, that it's not going to be a human thing, that it's not going to be traditions, but that it's going to be led by Jesus.
But I think if you actually really want to know what you want to do in life, and you pray about it, like this big calling that everyone talks about, is Jesus telling you.
A calling is a Christian term describing a divine moment giving purpose to people's lives. The Bruderhof seek it before committing to the community.
Young people have to search for that calling. I was mystified. How would I know when I'm called? And yet, through seeking, suddenly it became clear that this was the way that I wanted to spend the rest of my life. To me, it was a feeling of inner peace, like the peace that you feel on a beautiful spring day, sitting in the woods, doing nothing, and you have no worries anymore and no fears anymore. To me, that was the most incredible experience of my life.
Bernard committed to this life as soon as he was able, and has never doubted his decision to raise his family here.
To have my kids raised outside of what people deem to be the mainstream, I think is perfectly fine. I mean, we've been raising children on the Bruderhof for 100 years. The thing I resist the most for my children coming in is individualism. I don't want my children to grow up in a world where they're always thinking about themselves and what they want and what they need. I want my children to grow up thinking about other people. I don't feel a need to cram my children's rooms with toys because they have so much more. They spend most of their time playing outdoors.
Bernard had to accept the Bruderhof's back-to-basics lifestyle when he moved to Darvel as a 9-year-old boy.
When we first visited as a family, the first thing my parents did is started singing at breakfast and then got rid of our television. So those are the two.
Mine?
Not really. Actually, look at this. I'll show you something interesting. It's the front of the Spectator this week.
Yeah, some like playing on an iPad or whatever it is.
What's it trying to tell you?
Time to switch your iPads off.
Time to switch off. Look, he's looking at an iPad.
What's an iPad?
It's like a big phone or a small computer. And children these days spend a lot of time using iPads. Children here don't have access to the internet, they don't have a smartphone, they don't play video games. And I think it's a good thing. I think a lot of sort of social media is very isolating. You know, you can sit in your bedroom and play computer games, or maybe play with someone who's 1,000 miles away. But I think kids should be doing stuff with their friends, face to face.
Aged 13, Esther is the oldest of Bernard's children.
Other people that are your age, what do you imagine they like doing in their bedrooms?
I mean, they'd probably be on their phone most of the time, or doing, I don't know, other things, or watching telly. I don't know, but we don't have those things.
Do you feel that you miss those things at all?
No, I don't think I miss them, because I've never had them, so I don't know what to miss.
So all the European countries started developing trade routes to go into the Far East. We have Spain and...
The children are schooled by the Bruderhof, and although they do have some contact with the outside world, it's not until adulthood that they are encouraged to leave and explore life in mainstream society. In search of her calling, Hannah has decided to do just that, swapping the green fields of Darvel for inner city Peckham.
I want to go to London to get an experience away from the Bruderhof. At this point, it's basically all I've really known, but it has to be more than like a safe and protected way of life. Also, because now that I'm an adult, I have to kind of decide, where am I going to go with my life? Do I want to become a member of the Bruderhof? Do I want to do something else? And if I stay in the Bruderhof, I won't know what my other options are.
What do you think you're searching for?
The same thing everyone else looks for in life, fulfillment. I mean, everyone needs that, right? You have to be fulfilled somehow. I've heard other Christians saying things like, God told me to come to London and work for homeless people. And I'm like, gee, that must be nice. God told you? That makes it really simple, doesn't it? I mean, just like, God, tell me what to do and I'll happily go do it. Just don't leave me hanging here, like wondering what I should be doing, but yeah.
With no money of her own, Hannah is collecting the train fare from the Bruderhof treasurer. She's also been given a small allowance to survive until she finds a job.
Hey, I wrote a note for some money for my trip up.
Okay.
Do you have that?
Yes, I do. I've got
Cool.
an envelope here. There you go. There it is.
Thank you.
Have a great time up there.
Yeah, it should be cool.
It's Hannah's last night with her parents.
Let's give thanks. God, thank you for this opportunity for Hannah to go to London, and we know you will protect her and lead her, and we thank you for this food and ask your blessing. Amen.
Mum, Ruthie, and Dad, Mark, understand the challenges of the journey she is about to take.
Hannah, it was only a few years ago that I shot off from home on a 18-hour bus ride or something crazy.
Good grief.
Yeah, down to South Carolina. And I ended up finding out that I was going to go right into work with no training. That was tough, I'll admit. But it's those tough times that end up being the good times. I learned to pray real fast.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. When you start really praying and you really are looking for answers, you suddenly start seeing them.
You're going to meet a lot of people who live very different lives, But that doesn't matter. God works in many colors.
I hope you learn humility. You can never be too humble, right? And I hope you learn to depend completely on God.
We do not want our communities and our commitment here to be something that is an automatic for a child growing up here. That would be bad. That's why we want her to have this chance to be away. Take this opportunity if you like. Commitment is not a popular thing. It's always just a little bit scary. There's an unknown down the road. And that decision we will leave entirely to her.
For most of the Bruderhof, the working day begins at 6 a.m. But for Hannah, this could be the beginning of her new life. It will be the first time she's lived away from home.
Okay, Hannah.
I do know what Hannah's searching for, because it's the same thing that everyone searches for, and that is to fill the void in themselves, which can only be filled, I think, by God and Jesus.
I'll need a single to London Bridge.
Used to a village of 300, life in the city will be a challenge. To aid the transition, she will initially live in a small Bruderhof residence in Peckham.
It's kind of strange to now think that this is going to be home. But it doesn't look like home, but it will get there. It's too peoply out there. Yeah, it's another world.
We are house parents here in Peckham for the young people. When they first arrive, you know, they're often shell-shocked. We're no longer strolling through the countryside. We are now in a big city. Nothing can prepare them for what they're actually going to meet each day. Lots of people, the traffic. These things take time to adjust to from the country.
This is it. I'm feeling hopeful and excited and nervous and everything else, and I don't even know what I'm feeling. It's definitely a new feeling, but it's kind of like before I started high school. I was nervous, I was worried, but I was also ready to move on, and it's the same now.
Only 56 miles south, life couldn't be more different.
I think you have days where you question your faith and you ask yourself, you know, did I really need to commit my entire life to, you know, radical Christianity? But if you ask me, I couldn't live anywhere else.
Hardy is 26. He moved to the UK in 2010. Like Hannah, his path to commitment was not always clear.
I grew up with the Bruderhof. As a child, you know, the Bruderhof is paradise. It was a great place to grow up. Absolutely loved it. Of course, as I grew older, you know, you hit your teenage years. Definitely I had the mentality, grass is greener, you know, away from the community. We don't have our own technology. We don't watch television. So for a young teenager, that's a big deal. You know, you see what everyone else has and you're like, man, it's rough here. So yeah, I would say I became a bit of a disturbance. I guess you could call it rebelliousness, just basic teenage behavior. So by mutual consent, my family decided to take some time away from the community. And that was done totally with the Bruderhof's blessing.
Hardy and his 5 siblings left when he was 14. At the time, he felt life outside the community would be better.
When I first left the community, I was surprised by the way a lot of people live. A lot of things which I didn't feel were good were normal. So in a way, you could say our children aren't adequately prepared for that. You definitely have to make an adjustment. It's not easy to move from a place where a lot of things are done for you to a life where you're on your own and you have to figure it out.
In London for only a short time, it's immediately apparent to Hannah how different her life has been.
I kind of feel like almost from a different time zone, you could say. It's not that I'm old-fashioned, it's more that, like, imagine that someone from the Middle Ages shows up in London and stays like Middle Ages, stays in those clothes, stays in that, like, way of life. I kind of feel like a foreigner, but it's different than that. It's like, I'm still from England, I'm still British. I'm also just from a really different way of living.
Living independently, Hannah now has control of her life and finances for the first time.
Going to a shop to buy food or whatever is very different from Darvel because I never had to do that there. It feels strange to have money in my pocket. I never needed to have money, so I never had it. Growing up, I would walk past the shops and you just kind of like look at the stuff and you know, okay, you're not gonna buy it because you don't have the money. And now I have the money and I can. It's also a responsibility. It's not a lot of money and I can't just go spend it on anything. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Whilst the city offers Hannah endless possibilities, the realities of modern life are beginning to dawn on her.
I'm kind of excited, but to be really honest, I'm freaking nervous too.
Yeah. It's kind of exciting.
I mean, like, that's everything that I've never done before, which is crazy. I mean, like, even just like the basic things, like setting up a bank account, getting a job, buying a phone, like basic stuff that everybody else has done or they've seen their parents doing growing up. And I've never done. I'm probably gonna screw that all up.
Never had to worry about it before.
But like, I don't want to just like come running back for help as soon as I run out of money, because that's a bit pathetic.
Hannah has taken a job as a youth worker, giving her an opportunity to further explore life outside the Bruderhof.
These are inner city kids. They've come from such a different place than I have. They've grown up on these estates with 0% green space compared to where I come from. It's made me really thankful for some things that I didn't even realize I had.
It's the first job Hannah's ever had, and she's having to learn some very different skills.
This is the hard part.
Yeah, that's when it gets hard. Great.
You press A to pass.
Yeah.
You hold B, you can shoot. Press it once,
That would have been fatal.
and then you score.
It is a huge change. I've never played a PlayStation before. So I'm not very good at it, but I'm learning quickly. I'll have to beat them by the end of the year.
Go! It's really close.
That was bad news. I didn't know what to do.
The job is giving Hannah a chance to see what children outside her world dream of.
Do you like school?
I love school, even though I'm in year 6, I love it. I love to learn and I love to play with my friends. In our school today.
I was surprised the other day at an estate. One kid, they told me they wanted to be a marine biologist. He's 9 years old. So I was like, whoa. It's really impressive, their aspirations, because you see where they're coming from, an estate in London. But like, the fact that they still want to follow a dream like this is incredible.
And does that make you question what your future holds for you?
Yeah, it kind of does. As a kid, I wanted to be a ranger in the Catskill Mountains. But if I was at the Bruderhof now, I would be cleaning probably, or in the nursery. If I would commit to the Bruderhof, it would limit my future.
A decision to return to the Bruderhof would mean Hannah would give up many personal freedoms that most take for granted.
It's definitely a life where you have to sacrifice things. And ambition is one of those things you have to sacrifice. You know, if you want some high-powered career, the Bruderhof's not going to be the place for you.
There are only a few types of job available here, and the domestic duties are predominantly undertaken by the female members.
People often come to the Bruderhof and they see a certain sort of gender segregation in our work and they want to ask about it. But to us, no one's being paid, and it's really not a big deal which jobs men do and which jobs women do. You know, there's no benefit in any of those jobs.
Have you ever questioned the divisions of roles based on gender?
Yes, as a young woman, as a teenager, I definitely questioned them. And as I grew older, I learned to understand more deeply the significance of why it is that we do what we do here. And I've learned to understand it and appreciate it deeply. And I've never been so free in my life living here. And it's because we are under no pressure as women to conform to anything other than, you know, to follow Christ. And we do that in a free way by taking care of our kids, taking care of other people's kids, you know, doing laundry, chopping vegetables, whatever it is in the kitchen. And we have our roles perhaps just because they're traditional roles of women. And it's not a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing. And I appreciate it and I'm thankful for it.
It's not just career choice that Hannah would forfeit. Committed members lose the right to make many decisions affecting their own lives.
Is the community a democracy?
No, the community's not a democracy. And we wouldn't want it to be that because it would waste just a massive amount of time. People move where they're told, people move around internationally. So it's a way of life where you have to be willing to give up that sort of stuff or you shouldn't come and join.
Many decisions dictate life across every one of the 23 communities, such as restrictions on same-sex relationships and set rules on what the ladies wear.
So these are my wife and I's clothes. The women wear a skirt and a shirt normally. The men wear a pair of trousers and a shirt. And we try to avoid fashions of any sort. The way the women wear, the dresses they wear probably look quite old-fashioned, but that's because they wear a similar style of clothes as they always wore. And so if they look like peasant dresses from the 1920s, that's because we used to be peasants in the 1920s.
But what you're wearing isn't like a peasant in the 1920s.
Well, actually, I mean, I don't know too much about style choices of peasants in the 1920s, but I think it's actually the relentless focus on women's fashion is what makes our women look maybe outdated. It's just because that's where fashion makes its money. And for some reason, men are just not a bigger fashion target as women are, till the skinny jeans came along.
Is it the kind of stuff that you would wear?
No. It's not the kind of stuff I'd wear.
What would you wear?
Something that's functional. I mean, like, what's the point of this? There's like nothing in the back. It's just, no. Can't you just see me in this? Not. I guess one thing I've experienced is how empty life can be, and you kind of replace, well, you fill that emptiness with stuff. It is bizarre because it's just so unnecessary. I just can't understand why you would bother. Like, why would you use your hard-earned money to buy just excess amounts of stuff? These ones just look hilarious.
Once in our little community in Germany, we were all sitting around in the evening and we were giving each other haircuts, like whack, 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 with a big pair of sewing scissors. And one of our friends was there, like from the neighborhood, and she was like, I just paid 50 euros for that.
That's awesome.
No.
Hannah's met with other Bruderhof women living in London who are also questioning life in mainstream society.
I think women often don't realize how enslaved they are by consumerism and how absolutely binding it is. That's why, and it's often even hard to make genuine relationships with people when they're so fixated on lifestyle and on appearance.
I wear like the most old-fashioned, like kind of modest Christian clothes, but I don't know, maybe I'm like one of the louder, like wilder ones.
I have to say, I'm not entirely identified by what I wear. For me, it just makes a simple statement to the world about who I am and what people can do to me. It says something about what I believe in. And,
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it is what other people perceive. Like, other people think, oh, they're oppressed, or oh, they just have to listen and the men have all to say, but it's totally not how it is.
It's not how it is.
So, like, changing how we are doesn't make sense because at this point, like, we're not oppressed.
Hannah's now been away from the Bruderhof for a month, and her parents want to hear how she's getting on.
So, Han, how are you enjoying city life? Are you settling in and things going okay?
I'm getting used to it. You don't love it yet?
No, I miss, like, trees and country, and there's a lot of people here, sometimes too many. But there's some things that are nice.
I just can't think of what right now.
I guess I find myself alone, as in, like, not with anyone that I know a lot more of the time than I used to.
I don't mind being alone.
It's just alone in a huge crowd of people kind of thing.
We pray for you all the time, of course, you knew that.
Do you miss me then?
Of course we miss you.
Yeah, we miss you every single day. Han, we're gonna have to go to get ready for the afternoon, but we love you tons.
Hey, have fun.
Yeah, I love you tons.
Bye.
Bye-bye, love you.
It's only the start of her year away, but Hannah has already formed a strong impression of the world outside.
Sometimes I think to myself, how could there be, like, the Bruderhof and London in the same world? And up here in London, it's like the attitude to life is just so different. Everyone is just trying to improve themselves and their life, or the life of their family. I've been flipping lonely and just, like, trying to find ways to fill my time that are also, like, meaningful. I just feel useless if I spend, like, the entire morning just doing stuff for my own benefit. All the members of the Bruderhof have committed their lives to a cause. There's that meaning, that, like, purpose that makes you get out of bed in the morning. Like, if it wasn't for my faith, if it wasn't for... Yeah, I guess if it wasn't for my faith, I would see no point in life.
It's not important at all that all the children who grew up here join the community. In fact, if everyone joined the community, it would probably mean that we're doing something wrong. I like it that, 20–30% of young people find some other calling outside of the community. I think that's a good thing. I think it's healthy.
Are there some ex-members who would talk negatively about their experience in the Bruderhof?
There's definitely people who have left over the years who are unhappy with the Bruderhof. I think it's important to know that the Bruderhof has changed. In the 1940s, 1950s, the community didn't have any money. Maybe didn't give people the support they needed. Times are different now, and we have to apologise and try and find forgiveness for that.
Why did you come back?
What brought me back was I never felt the same sense of belonging anywhere else.
Some people might say that you were running away from real life by moving back here. What would you say to that?
I don't think the Bruderhof is an escape from reality. We're not trying to get away from all the terrible things in the world. I think from a selfish point of view, I would probably be happier living elsewhere. I knew it would take sacrifice. I knew I had to give up what I wanted to do in my life. Giving up my career, my ambitions, my dreams of what I could become. But I was willing to make that sacrifice in order to find that peace, which I found in this community. Slow down, man. Wait for Mom. My parents only returned just 2 years ago. So they were away from the community for 8 years. So I came back with my younger brother as well. And the other 4 are living away from the community. I don't feel like I'm a better person because I chose this way of life. I think same for them.
People have asked us, is the Bruderhof a cult? And I can emphatically say no. A cult forces its members to stay. Our community, we literally boot our children out when they're 18 and say, go and try something else.
People will probably think our way of life is a bit strange. It's certainly very different. We have no problem realizing that. But they'll probably also just see that it's normal people trying to live a decent way of life.
Do you have control in your life here?
It depends what you mean by control. There's a certain order to life in community, and I think that's a good thing. It's a wholesome thing. It's about living a disciplined life, which is important.
You can see and star and moon and sun and candle.
We're not a utopia. We've still got work to do. I think we've definitely figured out ways to overcome a lot of difficulties which people in society are facing.
The Bruderhof works because everyone here has given up absolutely everything to follow Christ. I think there's many people who are looking for a different way of life, and a different way of life is possible.
Seeing the emptiness in people's lives, seeing how messed up society is, I have realized the value in community, the joy in committing your life to something bigger than yourself. It makes you flippin' happy, because it's not just you anymore. My heart's telling me to finish this year off and get my butt back in normal.